Okay, so I suppose this can be called a part to my New Hampshire primary video. And in the last video, I mentioned I'd heard Hillary Clinton's concession speech. And well, it was more speech because the concession part was very, very minimal. She was very upbeat under the circumstances. Then I heard Sanders, and I've just heard Trump. And now Kasich just speaking in the background. Um, Sanders was speaking about the sort of things you would expect him to speak about, social justice and taking on the billionaire class and this sort of thing. He did say that his presidency would take on ISIS, but not get young men and women in the armed forces into a Middle East quagmire. The Trump speech, as you would expect, couldn't have been more different. Um, Again, a quick disclaimer, I am an outsider, so purely my reflections. You don't have to agree with me. I'm not telling anyone or trying to influence anyone how to vote. It's purely my reflections. So the Trump speech was, initially it was all warm and he was thanking his family and so on. So on, then it got into classic Donald Trump, ultra nationalistic, very bombastic. Basically, it, the thing about Trump speeches is they're surreal. It's almost like watching a trailer for an action movie. Like, we're going to kick their ass, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. This guy just does not talk like a professional world leader or a responsible world leader, I should say. I mean, he talks like he's in an action film, and that is deeply disturbing that this guy could actually be elected to the office of President of the United States. It is a scary thought. I'm not saying, by the way, I'm a Sanders supporter because I've still to make my mind up about that. But, Trump's once again just been shown why he's such a polarizing figure. And he also, one thing that was noticeable is he went to thank his other candidates, calling them a great bunch of people and so on. So then immediately he said, and I thought for once, okay, well, he's shown decency, he's been sportsmanlike. Then immediately he was like, oh, we've got that out of the way now. I mean, this guy, I don't think he's sincere. I really don't. And that makes him, I think he's sincere about all the neo-nationalistic stuff, but I don't think he's sincere when he comes out with statements like this. I suspect there's someone in the Trump campaign saying, look, Donald, you need to be show decency at times and so on and so on. But basically it goes against the man's nature. I think he's naturally combative. And that can be a good thing. It, in terms of politician, it can show toughness, but it can also show downright arrogance. And he said something which, as an outsider, I do want to comment on. He said, once again, the rest of the world will respect us. Well, the insinuation with that is that the world doesn't respect America under Obama. People forget, or the Republicans forget, that in 2008, one of the reasons Obama had such a surge of popularity nationwide, I mean, it was a very solid election performance, was because people recognized that the Bush era, whatever you think of it in retrospect, the Bush era did make America a deeply, deeply unpopular country. I'm sorry to say that, because I love America. I think it's a great country. But it is a fact that under Bush, America became really, really polarized, deeply controversial in Europe. And it's fine to say, oh, Euro trash can shut up and so on. But, I'm making the contrast with other democratic countries. Fact of the matter is, America under Bush was deeply isolated country. Now, it could be argued that Obama has went too far in reaching out to Iran and Cuba. It could be argued it's all one way, and I think the Republicans may have a point with that. But for Donald Trump to claim that this sort of bombastic, neo-nationalistic, militaristic approach will gain respect is totally flawed, because that's the sort of thing that makes America so controversial in the eyes of much of the rest of the world. And I'm not just talking about communist countries or jihadists or any, I'm talking about other democratic countries. So Trump's, he's never been a politician and he's showing that. I mean, he's obviously skilled and clever enough to win elections, but it's scary to think this man could actually get into the White House. Like I say, I'm not outright a Sanders supporter because I'm not that. I think his administration would be the other extreme, possibly, too politically correct, too. There's a lot of hard left ideas I wouldn't necessarily like either. I will say one thing: John Kasich came across as reasonable. I only saw part of his speech, but he came across as moderate, certainly compared to Trump, and he has, to his credit, condemned Trump's scaremongering. Now, again, Trump is sort of making some statements to kind of tone down himself a bit, and I very much suspect he's got some advisors saying that, like, oh, we're for immigration, but it has to be legal, and so he's trying to temper some of his statements, but then he just can't help himself. Then he gets into full Donald Trump mode, and it is totally bombastic. It's totally nationalistic, and it's very, very disturbing, quite frankly, because Donald Trump is not an inclusive figure. He's not. And, you don't have to be a lefty to see that, because the rest of the Republican field can see it. So I tell you something, if Trump does get the nomination, it's going to be interesting to see who will be his running mate, because he's managed to make himself so unpopular among the rest of the party. So be interesting to see who his running mate is. I think he's got on okay with Ben Carson. I could see Carson possibly as a running mate. Very hard to see Carly Fiorina, given their tetchy record. Trump Carson is possible. But, I know that when someone is as famous as Donald Trump is, you can be caricatured in a certain way. And I do think on some occasions the media has perhaps exaggerated some of his comments or taken out of context. But the man himself doesn't exactly help his own case with the sort of bombastic approach he takes. And I've no problem with a leader talking tough. That's not the issue here. The issue is that he sounds like he's in an action film. This is a man who wants executive office. And it's very different being a business person and being an elected representative. It's not the same thing. Because what's Donald Trump going to do if people disagree with him? If is he going to fire 30 states? So running America is not like running a big business. I don't. I disagree with that analogy. Um, so that's it. It's just my thoughts. Don't have to agree. A quick word about the general election. If it does come down to Sanders versus Trump, I think Trump will win but it's hard to say because Sanders is a much less polarizing figure insofar as his language and rhetoric is concerned. But, they both have weaknesses. I think Sanders can easily fall into the trap of looking weak. Trump could look like if he's too aggressive, if he comes on too aggressive, too angry, he could lose it because McCain came across as pretty angry in the debates and that backfired, whereas Obama looked like the positive candidate. So, remains to be seen what will happen. Um, But what is clear is with both these guys winning tonight, I think the establishment of both the Democrats and the Republicans is going to be shaken up. So this is going to be a very, very interesting election. See what happens in November.